The pharmacist stopped counting and said, "You are listed as deceased." The Walgreens pharmacist stopped counting my Lipitor refill mid-pill and looked up at me with the strangest expression I'd ever seen behind those thick-rimmed glasses. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to speak with my manager," Rebecca said, her nameplate catching the fluorescent light as she backed away from the counter like I'd just sprouted horns. "Is there a problem with my insurance?" I asked, already mentally calculating whether I could afford the full price. Being an insurance claims adjuster for Midwest Mutual didn't exactly make me rich, but I could swing $90 if I had to. Rebecca disappeared into the back room, and I could hear hushed, urgent whispers. Another customer got in line behind me, an elderly man with a walker who kept checking his watch and sighing dramatically. I pulled out my phone to scroll through emails while I waited, trying to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. Sarah Mitchell. A balding man in a white coat approached the counter, and Rebecca trailed behind him like she was afraid to get too close. "That's me. I'm Tom, the pharmacy manager. Could you step aside for a moment? We need to verify some information." The knot in my stomach tightened. "What kind of information?" Tom glanced around the pharmacy, then leaned forward and lowered his voice. "According to our system, your insurance shows you as, well, this is highly unusual, but it shows you as deceased. As of March 15th of this year." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's impossible. I'm standing right here." "I can see that," Tom said, his voice gentle but confused. "But the system is very clear. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, born June 3, 1989, social security number ending in 4792. Date of death listed as March 15, 2024. My hand started shaking. March 15th. That was exactly 1 week after my divorce from Marcus was finalized. 1 week after the most bitter, vindictive legal battle I'd ever witnessed, let alone participated in. "There has to be a mistake," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, a cold realization was creeping up my spine. Marcus worked for the county clerk's office. Marcus had access to all kinds of databases and paperwork. Marcus had sworn, on our final day in court, that he'd see me dead before he paid me a single cent. I thought it was just anger talking. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to contact your insurance company," Tom said. "This is, well, I've been doing this for 22 years, and I've never seen anything like it. The system won't let us process any claims for you. As far as Blue Cross Blue Shield knows, you're dead," I finished for him. Rebecca had been typing furiously on her computer during our entire conversation. Now she looked up with an even paler face than before. "Tom," she whispered, "I just checked the Social Security database through our verification system. It's showing the same thing. Death benefit claims were filed and processed on March 20th. The pharmacy suddenly felt too bright, too loud, too small. My pulse was hammering in my ears, and I could taste something metallic on my tongue, fear, maybe, or rage. Probably both. Marcus hadn't just threatened to see me dead. He'd actually done it. I stumbled out of Walgreens in a daze, my empty pill bottle clutched in my sweaty palm. The March afternoon sun felt too bright, too cheerful for what had just happened. I sat in my Honda Civic for 20 minutes, staring at my phone, before I finally worked up the courage to call Blue Cross Blue Shield. The automated system cheerfully informed me that my estimated wait time was 12 minutes. I spent those 12 minutes mentally rehearsing how to explain that I wasn't actually dead, which felt like the most insane sentence I'd ever constructed. "Blue Cross Blue Shield, this is Jennifer, how can I help you today?" "Hi, I need to report an error in your system. I'm showing as deceased, but I'm obviously not." There was a pause. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" I gave her my member ID and social security number, then waited while she pulled up my account. The silence stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "Ma'am, I'm showing that death benefits were processed for your account on March 20th. A death certificate was filed by." I heard papers rustling. "Marcus Mitchell, listed as your spouse and beneficiary." "Ex-spouse," I said through gritted teeth. "Our divorce was finalized on March 8th. "Oh." Another long pause. "Ma'am, this is a very serious situation. If there's been fraud involved, we need to involve our investigation department immediately. Can you hold please?" I held. For 37 minutes, I held, while elevator music played and my anger built like pressure in a tea kettle. When Jennifer finally came back, she had a supervisor with her. "Ms. Mitchell, this is David Chen from our fraud investigation unit. We've been reviewing your file, and I need to ask you some questions. First, can you confirm you're currently alive?" "Yes, I can confirm I'm currently alive," I said, wondering if this was what losing your mind felt like. "We're going to need you to come into one of our offices with multiple forms of ID. What I'm seeing here is, well, it's unprecedented. According to our records, your ex-husband submitted a death certificate, obituary, and coroner's report. He also filed for survivor benefits totaling $847,000, that includes your life insurance policy, retirement account death benefits, and a payout from your employer's group life insurance." My vision actually went gray around the edges. $847,000. That vindictive bastard had made nearly $1 million off my fake death. "There's more," David continued. "I'm also seeing that Social Security benefits were claimed, and, ma'am, are you still there?" "I'm here. Your voter registration has been cancelled. Your driver's license has been flagged as belonging to a deceased person. Someone has been very thorough." I thought about Marcus's job at the county clerk's office. His access to databases. His familiarity with bureaucratic processes. The man I'd been married to for 6 years had systematically erased me from existence. "Ms. Mitchell, I need to ask, do you have somewhere safe to stay? And have you tried to access your bank accounts recently?" My blood turned to ice water. "No, why?" "Bank accounts are typically frozen when someone is declared deceased. You might want to check on that immediately. And ma'am, don't do this alone. You're going to need a lawyer. A really good one." I hung up and immediately called my bank. The automated system asked for my social security number, then played a brief hold message before a recording came on. "We're sorry, but this account has been closed due to the death of the account holder. If you believe this is an error, please visit a branch with proper documentation. Marcus hadn't just killed me on paper. He'd made sure I couldn't survive the resurrection. I drove straight to First National Bank, my hands still trembling on the steering wheel. The same bank where I'd had accounts for 12 years, where the tellers knew me by name, where I deposited my paychecks every 2 weeks like clockwork. The lobby felt different somehow, too quiet, too formal. I approached Jennifer Walsh's desk, the personal banker who'd helped me refinance my car loan just 6 months ago. Hi Jennifer, I need to discuss my accounts. There's been some kind of error. Jennifer's face went through a series of expressions I'd never seen before. Confusion, then recognition, then something that looked almost like fear. Sarah. But you're... She stared at her computer screen, then back at me, then at the screen again. I processed your estate paperwork myself 3 weeks ago. What estate paperwork? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Your husband, sorry, ex-husband, he came in on March 22nd with all the documentation. Death certificate, court orders, everything looked legitimate. We transferred $23,847 from your checking account and $187,442 from your savings to him as the designated beneficiary. My knees actually buckled. I had to grab the edge of her desk to stay upright. Jennifer, look at me. I'm sitting right here, talking to you. How could you think I was dead? The paperwork was perfect, she said, her voice getting higher with panic. He had certified copies of everything. He even brought in your wedding ring and said he was settling your final affairs. She paused, typing frantically. Oh my God, Sarah. Oh my God, what did we do? $211,000. Marcus had walked out of my bank with over $200,000 of my money, and they'd handed it to him with a smile. Jennifer, I need to see the documentation he provided. All of it. She disappeared into the back office and returned 10 minutes later with a thick manila folder. My hands shook as I opened it, and what I saw made my stomach drop into my shoes. The death certificate looked completely official, raised seal, proper signatures, the works. Cause of death was listed as cardiac arrest due to natural causes. It was signed by Dr. Harold Pemberton, the county coroner. But I'd never met Dr. Harold Pemberton in my life. The obituary was even more disturbing. It painted a picture of a loving wife who died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by family. It mentioned Marcus as her devoted husband of 6 years and requested donations be made to the American Heart Association in lieu of flowers. There was no mention of our divorce. According to this version of reality, we'd been happily married right up until my convenient natural death. Jennifer, I need copies of everything. And I need you to call whoever you need to call, because this is fraud. Massive, documented fraud. She was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling our security department and the police. Sarah, I'm so sorry. The documentation was so convincing, and Marcus seemed so grief-stricken. He actually cried when he handed over your wedding ring. My wedding ring. The one I'd thrown at him during our final court appearance, telling him he could pawn it for all I cared. Apparently, he'd found a more creative use for it. While Jennifer made her calls, I studied the paperwork more carefully. Everything was perfectly executed, too perfect. The signatures, the seals, the formatting. This wasn't some hastily thrown-together scam. Marcus had spent time on this, planned every detail. But he'd made one mistake. The death certificate was dated March 15th and signed by the coroner on March 16th. But according to the timestamp on the bank's paperwork, Marcus had submitted these documents to my life insurance company on March 14th, one day before I'd supposedly died. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. If Marcus wanted to play games with paperwork, I'd show him what real documentation looked like. Starting with the proof that he tried to cash in on my death before he'd even bothered to kill me. The police officer who responded to the bank's call looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Officer Martinez kept glancing between me and the paperwork like he was trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. So you're saying your ex-husband faked your death to steal your money and avoid alimony payments, he said, not even trying to hide his skepticism. I'm saying my ex-husband committed fraud, identity theft, and probably a dozen other felonies, I replied, spreading the documents across Jennifer's desk. Look at the dates. He filed insurance claims before I was supposedly dead. Officer Martinez picked up the death certificate and held it up to the light. This looks legitimate to me. Official seal, proper signatures. He trailed off as I pointed to the insurance timestamp. March 14th, I said. He submitted death benefit claims on March 14th for someone who didn't die until March 15th. Either Marcus can see the future, or he's really bad at covering his tracks. For the first time, Martinez looked genuinely interested. He pulled out a small notebook and started writing. You said he works for the county clerk's office. Records department. He has access to everything, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage licenses, court filings. He processes this stuff every day. The full scope of what Marcus could do with that access was starting to hit me. Officer Martinez, if he can fake a death certificate this convincing, what else has he been doing? Jennifer had been quiet during our conversation, but now she cleared her throat nervously. Sarah, there's something else. When Marcus came in, he mentioned that he was handling arrangements for other family members too. He said something about your sister needing help with her accounts. My blood turned to ice. What sister? He said your sister Lisa was having trouble accessing her inheritance because of some paperwork issues. He had power of attorney documents to help her. I don't have a sister named Lisa. I don't have a sister at all. Jennifer, pull up any accounts associated with that transaction. Now. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, and within minutes she'd found what we were looking for. Lisa Mitchell, supposedly my grieving sister, had opened an account on March 23rd with a $50,000 deposit. The money had come from a life insurance payout for one Patricia Mitchell, age 67, who had died of complications from pneumonia on March 18th. Officer Martinez, I said, my voice barely steady, I think we need to check how many other people in this county have conveniently died in the past month. He was already on his radio, calling for backup and requesting contact with the county coroner's office. While he coordinated with dispatch, I asked Jennifer to print out everything she had on both accounts. The Patricia Mitchell documentation was even more sophisticated than mine. The death certificate listed her as a retired schoolteacher, survived by her loving children Marcus and Lisa Mitchell. The obituary mentioned her 40-year career in education and requested donations to the local literacy foundation. But when I googled Patricia Mitchell and the details from her obituary, I found something interesting. There really had been a Patricia Mitchell who taught school in our county for 40 years. She died in 1987 at the age of 73, 37 years ago. Marcus hadn't just created fake people. He'd been stealing the identities of real people who were already dead, people whose deaths were old enough that nobody would think to verify the details. How many accounts did you say he opened? I asked Jennifer. She was typing frantically, sweat beading on her forehead. I'm seeing, oh God, Sarah. I'm seeing 12 accounts opened in the past 6 weeks. All with death benefit deposits. All handled by Marcus Mitchell as either spouse, child, or designated beneficiary. 12 accounts. 12 fake deaths. And if each one was worth what mine had been. Jennifer, add up the total deposits. She pulled out a calculator, her hands shaking as she entered the numbers. $1.7 million, she whispered. Sarah, he's stolen over $1.7 million. Officer Martinez finished his radio call and walked back over. I've got some interesting news. I just spoke with Dr. Pemberton's office. He's been out of the country for the past 2 months, visiting his daughter in Germany. He never signed any death certificates in March. So someone forged his signature. Looks that way. But here's the really interesting part, the coroner's office has no record of processing any death certificates for the names on these accounts. According to their system, none of these people died. I stared at the pile of paperwork, my mind racing. Marcus created an entire fake death industry. He's been killing people on paper, collecting their benefits, and the system is so fragmented that nobody noticed. Until you walked into a pharmacy very much alive, Martinez said grimly. Ms. Mitchell, I need you to understand something. What your ex-husband has done isn't just fraud. This is organized, systematic theft on a massive scale. The FBI is going to want to talk to you. The FBI. 3 hours ago, my biggest problem had been affording my cholesterol medication. Now I was apparently the key witness in a federal fraud investigation. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. Heard you've been asking questions around town. Some things are better left buried, Sarah. Just like you should have been. The text message made my hands shake so violently I nearly dropped my phone. Officer Martinez noticed immediately. What is it? I showed him the screen. His expression darkened as he read the threat, and he immediately called for a detective to come to the scene. Ms. Mitchell, you need to take this seriously. Your ex-husband has stolen nearly $2 million. People have killed for a lot less. He paused, studying the message. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? Somewhere he wouldn't think to look. I thought about my tiny apartment, the one Marcus had the address for, since he'd fought tooth and nail to keep me from getting the house in our divorce settlement. My coworker Janet lives across town. I could probably stay with her. Do that. And don't go home alone to pack a bag. Martinez's radio crackled, and he stepped away to respond. Jennifer was still pulling up account information, her face getting paler with each screen. Sarah, there's more. I found a pattern in the dates. She turned her monitor so I could see the spreadsheet she created. Look at this. The deaths are clustered around specific times, always right after holidays or long weekends when government offices are closed. She was right. Patricia Mitchell had supposedly died on March 18th, the Monday after a 3-day weekend. Robert Chin, age 45, had died on February 20th, the day after President's Day. Margaret Foster, age 52, had died on January 16th, right after the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. He's timing them for when offices are closed and verification is harder, I realized. By the time anyone could double-check with the coroner's office or Social Security, he's already processed the paperwork and collected the money. Detective Sarah Holbrook arrived 20 minutes later, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who listened to our story with the kind of focused attention that made me feel like she actually believed me. She studied the threatening text message for a long time. Ms. Mitchell, I need you to know that what you've uncovered here is likely the tip of the iceberg. If your ex-husband has been doing this systematically, he's probably victimizing people in other counties too. She looked at Jennifer. I need you to print out everything, every account, every transaction, every piece of documentation. This is now evidence in a federal investigation. While Jennifer worked on the printing, Detective Holbrook asked me questions I hadn't thought of. Has Marcus ever mentioned having financial problems? Gambling debts, expensive habits, anything that might explain why he needed this much money? I thought back to our marriage, trying to remember warning signs I might have missed. He always complained about money, but I thought that was normal. We both had decent jobs, but he acted like we were constantly broke. He insisted on keeping our finances separate, said it was more modern that way. Did he travel much? Take unexplained trips? Actually, yes. He said they were work conferences, but now that I think about it, he went somewhere almost every month. Always paid cash, never wanted me to come along. A chill ran down my spine. Detective, what if he's been doing this in other states too? That's exactly what I'm thinking. The sophistication level here suggests he's had practice. She made a note in her pad. We'll need to coordinate with other jurisdictions, check for similar patterns of fraudulent deaths. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You cost me everything once before. I won't let you do it again. Stop digging or you'll find out what a real death certificate looks like. Detective Holbrook read the message and immediately got on her radio. I need a trace on 2 phone numbers, and I want a unit stationed at the suspect's residence for surveillance. She looked at me seriously. Ms. Mitchell, you're not going home tonight. In fact, you're not going anywhere alone until we have Marcus Mitchell in custody. The reality of my situation was finally sinking in. I wasn't just financially ruined, I was in actual physical danger from a man who'd already proven he was willing to erase me completely. The FBI arrived at 8:47 p.m., 3 agents in dark suits who transformed Jennifer's small office into something that looked like a command center. Special Agent Rebecca Torres introduced herself as the lead investigator for financial crimes, and within minutes she was asking questions that made my head spin. Ms. Mitchell, we've been tracking unusual patterns in death benefit payouts across 4 states, she said, spreading a map across Jennifer's desk. Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and Michigan. Your case might be the break we've been looking for. She pointed to red pins scattered across the map. Each pin represents a suspicious death benefit claim in the past 8 months. The total amount stolen is approaching $12 million. $12 million. I stared at the map, trying to process the scope of what Marcus had been doing. You think he's been traveling to different states, creating fake deaths? We think he's built a network. Look at the timing. Agent Torres pulled out a tablet and showed me a timeline. Claims in Michigan coincide with supposed work conferences Marcus attended. Same with Ohio and Illinois. But here's where it gets interesting, he's not working alone. She swiped to a new screen showing bank records. The money flows through multiple accounts before ending up in offshore holdings. Someone with serious financial expertise is helping him launder this. Detective Holbrook leaned forward. Any idea who that might be? I thought about Marcus's friends, his family, anyone who might have the skills to move millions of dollars without detection. Then it hit me like a truck. Veronica, I whispered. Who's Veronica? Agent Torres asked. Veronica Chen. She's a forensic accountant for the State Revenue Department. Marcus introduced me to her about a year ago, said they were working on some cross-departmental project. My stomach dropped as I remembered more details. She came to our Christmas party, asked a lot of questions about my job and insurance claims. I thought she was just being friendly, but she was gathering intelligence on how insurance payouts work, Agent Torres finished. What else do you remember about her? She's smart. Really smart. And she kept talking about how easy it would be to manipulate government databases if someone knew the right access points. I felt sick. I thought she was just showing off. I never imagined she was recruiting Marcus for something like this. Agent Torres was already typing on her tablet. Veronica Chen, forensic accountant, State Revenue. Got her. She looked up grimly. Ms. Mitchell, Veronica Chen has been flagged by our financial crimes unit for 6 months. We suspected she was involved in identity theft, but we couldn't prove it. Your case might give us what we need. My phone buzzed with another text. This time it wasn't from an unknown number, it was from Marcus's phone directly. Sarah, we need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park, the old pavilion. Come alone and we can work this out. Don't involve the police any further and I'll make sure you get your money back. Agent Torres read the message and immediately signaled to her team. That's not happening. But this gives us an opportunity. She looked at me intently. Ms. Mitchell, would you be willing to wear a wire? Help us get him on record. You want me to meet with him? Not alone. We'll have agents positioned throughout the park. You'll be completely protected, but we need him to admit what he's done. Confessions carry a lot more weight in court than circumstantial evidence. Detective Holbrook nodded. It's your choice, Sarah. But this might be the fastest way to get your life back. I thought about my empty bank accounts, my frozen credit, my inability to even fill a prescription. Marcus had stolen more than my money, he'd stolen my entire existence. What do I need to do? Agent Torres smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. You need to convince Marcus Mitchell that Sarah Mitchell is ready to make a deal with the devil. The wire felt cold against my skin, a constant reminder of how surreal my life had become in the span of 12 hours. Agent Torres had positioned it carefully under my sweater, the tiny microphone barely visible but somehow feeling as obvious as a neon sign. Remember, we need him to admit to the fraud, she said through my earpiece as I walked toward Riverside Park. Don't push too hard, just let him talk. He's desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. It was 10:15 p.m., and the park was eerily quiet. The old pavilion sat near the duck pond where Marcus and I had come for picnics during happier times, back when I thought I knew who I was married to. Now I understood that the man I'd loved for 6 years had never existed at all. Marcus was already there, pacing under the pavilion's dim lighting. He looked terrible, unshaven, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. When he saw me approaching, his face lit up with what looked like genuine relief. Sarah, thank God you came. I was worried you'd. He stopped mid-sentence, studying my face. You look different. Harder. People tend to change when they're murdered, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. He actually winced. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. You have to believe me, it started as something completely different. What started as something different, Marcus? Stealing $2 million. Or just the part where you erased me from existence. It's not $2 million, he said quickly, then caught himself. I mean, it's not what you think. Most of that money isn't even mine. I felt Agent Torres's voice in my ear, keep him talking about the money. Then whose is it? Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit I remembered from our marriage. Look, I got in over my head, okay? Veronica said it would be simple, a few fake claims to help some people who really needed the money. Like Robin Hood, you know. Robin Hood didn't steal from his ex-wife. I was going to pay you back. Every penny, Sarah, I swear. But then you filed for divorce, and the lawyers were asking for so much in alimony, and Veronica said we could solve both problems at once. He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to back away. You were going to bleed me dry anyway. This was just more efficient. The casual way he said it made my skin crawl. More efficient than what, Marcus? Actually paying what you owed me. Do you have any idea how much $3,200 a month is over 10 years? You would have taken nearly $500,000 from me just because we couldn't make our marriage work. His voice was rising, the desperation bleeding through. At least this way, you get to start over completely. New identity, new life. What new identity? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Marcus smiled, and for a moment he looked like his old charming self. Veronica's working on it. Sarah Elizabeth Walker, same initials, but completely clean paperwork. Birth certificate, social security number, even a credit history going back 5 years. You could disappear completely, go anywhere you want. My blood ran cold. You're talking about making the fake death permanent. I'm talking about giving you freedom. He was gesturing wildly now, his voice echoing in the empty pavilion. No more insurance job, no more boring life in this dead-end town. You could take the $200,000 I set aside for you and start over in California, or Florida, or anywhere. 200,000. You stole over 2 million, Marcus. He shrugged. Operating expenses. Veronica takes 40%, and we have to pay people to keep quiet. The coroner's assistant who processes the fake certificates gets $10,000 per death. The bank manager who approved the accounts gets 15% of each payout. The guy at Social Security who updates the databases gets. How many people are involved in this? I interrupted. Enough to make sure it keeps working, he said proudly. Veronica built an entire network. We've got people in 5 states now, and we're expanding into. He stopped abruptly, his eyes narrowing. You're asking a lot of questions, Sarah. Very specific questions. My heart started pounding, but Agent Torres's voice in my ear was calm and steady. Stay cool. He's just being paranoid. I'm asking questions because you murdered me, Marcus. I think I deserve some answers. I didn't murder anyone, he snapped. Murder implies violence. This is just creative accounting. Creative accounting that got you nearly $2 million. 2.4 million, actually, he said, then immediately looked like he wanted to take it back. But like I said, most of that goes to other people. I'm not the mastermind here, Sarah. I'm just good at paperwork. In my ear, I heard Agent Torres whisper, we've got him. Keep recording, but be ready to run if he gets suspicious. But Marcus was already backing away, his eyes darting around the empty park. Something's wrong, he muttered. You're too calm about this. The old Sarah would be screaming at me by now. Maybe being dead changed me. Or maybe you're not here alone. His voice turned dangerous. Sarah, please tell me you didn't do something stupid like call the police. I didn't call the police, I said truthfully. The FBI had called themselves. But Marcus was already pulling out his phone. Veronica? Yeah, it's me. We have a problem. Marcus's phone call lasted less than 30 seconds, but I could see his expression changing with every word Veronica spoke on the other end. When he hung up, his face had gone completely white. She's gone, he whispered, staring at his phone like it had personally betrayed him. Veronica cleaned out all the accounts this afternoon. Every single one. I felt Agent Torres tense through the earpiece, but I tried to keep my voice neutral. What do you mean, gone? I mean gone. $2.4 million, transferred to accounts in the Cayman Islands at 3:47 p.m. today. The same day you started asking questions at the pharmacy. He looked at me with something that might have been respect if it weren't so twisted. She said you coming back from the dead was too much heat. The whole operation had to be shut down immediately. So she just stole everything. From both of us. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. From all of us. The coroner's assistant was supposed to get paid tomorrow, $50,000 for processing 23 fake death certificates since January. The Social Security guy was expecting his cut on Friday. Even the bank managers who looked the other way. He sat down heavily on one of the pavilion's picnic tables. Veronica played us all. In my earpiece, I heard urgent whispers between agents. This was bigger than they'd thought, and now their main target had fled with all the evidence. Marcus, where is Veronica now? How should I know? She could be anywhere. Probably sipping drinks on a beach somewhere while the rest of us deal with the fallout. He looked up at me with desperate eyes. Sarah, we're both screwed now. When the FBI figures out what happened, and they will, I'm going to prison for 20 years. And you? You're still legally dead with no way to prove who you are. That hit me like a physical blow. In all the drama of the investigation, I'd forgotten that my fundamental problem remained unsolved. Even if they arrested Marcus, even if they recovered some of the money, I was still Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, deceased as of March 15, 2024. There has to be a way to reverse it, I said, as much to myself as to him. With what proof? Veronica has all the original documents we used to create the fake deaths. The coroner's assistant who helped us is probably halfway to Mexico by now, she texted him the same morning she gave everyone else. And without Veronica's financial records, how are you going to prove the money was stolen instead of legitimately inherited? He was right, and the realization made my knees weak. What about the other victims? The other fake deaths? What other victims? Marcus looked genuinely confused. Sarah, there are no other victims. I mean, we used real names of people who were already dead, but we didn't hurt anyone living. This was supposed to be a victimless crime. Victimless? Marcus, you stole millions of dollars. From insurance companies. From the government. Not from real people. He stood up, pacing again. Do you know how much profit Blue Cross Blue Shield made last quarter? $847,000 is a rounding error to them. Same with Social Security, they write off fraudulent claims all the time. The casual way he rationalized stealing nearly $1 million in my name made me sick. But Agent Torres's voice in my ear brought me back to focus. Ask him about the threatening texts. Marcus, did you send me threatening messages today? He stopped pacing and stared at me. What threatening messages? Someone told me to stop digging or I'd find out what a real death certificate looks like. That wasn't me. His face had gone pale again. Sarah, if someone's threatening you, it means there are other people involved that I don't know about. Veronica said this operation only had 12 people, but what if she was lying about that too? My blood turned to ice. If Veronica had been manipulating Marcus the same way Marcus had manipulated me, then we had no idea how deep this conspiracy really went. Or who else might want to keep me permanently dead? My phone buzzed in my pocket, and both Marcus and I froze. Agent Torres's voice crackled urgently in my ear, don't answer it. Let us trace the call. But the buzzing stopped, replaced immediately by a text notification. Marcus was close enough to see my screen when I pulled out my phone, and his face went gray as we both read the message. Meeting's over, Sarah. You have 24 hours to disappear permanently, or we'll make sure your resurrection becomes front-page news. Along with some very interesting photos of your insurance fraud activities. A friend. What insurance fraud activities? I whispered, but Marcus was already backing away from me like I'd become radioactive. Sarah, I never told anyone you worked in insurance claims. The only person who knew that detail was Veronica, I finished, my stomach dropping. But why would she threaten me now? She already has the money. Marcus was shaking his head frantically. You don't understand. Veronica didn't just steal the money, she's been documenting everything. Every conversation, every transaction, every person involved. She told me it was for security, but what if it was insurance? What if she's been building evidence files on all of us? Through my earpiece, I heard Agent Torres coordinating with her team, suspect may be attempting to flee jurisdiction. All units maintain position but be ready to move. The pieces were falling into place in my mind, creating a picture that made me feel sick. Marcus, think about this logically. Veronica's a forensic accountant. She knows exactly how investigations work, what evidence prosecutors need for convictions. What if this whole operation wasn't about stealing money? What else would it be about? What if it was about creating leverage? I pulled up my phone's calculator, adding numbers quickly. You said 12 people were involved across 5 states. If she has documented evidence of each person committing federal fraud, and the average payout was around $200,000. Marcus caught on immediately. She'd have blackmail material worth millions. Instead of stealing once and running, she could extort payments for years. His voice cracked. Jesus, Sarah. We weren't her partners. We were her products. Another text came through, this time with an attachment. The image made my blood freeze. It was a photo of me sitting in Jennifer's office at the bank, clearly taken through the window from the parking lot. Someone had been watching me all day. But the caption was what really terrified me. Sarah Mitchell discussing insurance claim procedures with Marcus Mitchell, March 23, 2023. Note the detailed conversation about identifying fraudulent death benefits and bypassing verification protocols. Marcus leaned over my shoulder to read it, and I heard him suck in a sharp breath. That conversation never happened. We never discussed your work in detail, and definitely not fraud procedures. But it sounds like something that could have happened, I realized. Veronica's not just blackmailing us with what we actually did, she's creating evidence of things we didn't do. Building conspiracy cases that don't exist. Which means even if we prove the fake death was Marcus's idea, I could still go to prison for insurance fraud conspiracy, I whispered. Agent Torres's voice in my ear had taken on a new urgency. We're moving in. Both of you stay exactly where you are. But before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my own name, Sarah Mitchell. Marcus and I stared at each other in horror as I answered the call. Hello, Sarah, said a voice I'd never heard before, smooth, professional, with just a hint of amusement. I think it's time we had a proper conversation about your future. Your very short future. The voice on the phone wasn't Veronica's, it was deeper, male, with an accent I couldn't place. Marcus grabbed my wrist, his eyes wide with terror as he mouthed, speakerphone. Who is this? I asked, hitting the speaker button so Agent Torres could hear through my wire. Someone who's been cleaning up after Veronica Chen's messes for the past 6 months. You can call me David. The man chuckled softly. Though that's not my real name, of course. Just like Sarah Mitchell isn't going to be yours much longer. Marcus was frantically gesturing for me to hang up, but I could hear Agent Torres in my earpiece. Keep him talking. We're tracing this. What do you want? I asked. What I want is for incompetent amateurs to stop screwing up a perfectly good operation. Veronica was supposed to handle this quietly, but instead she panicked and stole money that wasn't hers to take. David's voice hardened. That money belongs to some very serious people who don't appreciate being robbed. My mind raced. So Veronica was working for someone else too? Veronica was working for me. Just like your pathetic ex-husband was working for her. It's a hierarchy, Sarah. And right now, you're at the very bottom, which is a dangerous place to be. Marcus had gone completely white. He pulled out his own phone and started typing frantically, probably trying to reach Veronica, though I doubted she'd answer. The thing is, David continued, Veronica's little disappearing act has created a problem for everyone. The people who invested in this operation want their returns, and they don't much care whether that money comes from insurance companies or from the personal assets of the people who lost it. What does that mean? It means, dear Sarah, that you and Marcus now owe my associates approximately $2.4 million. Plus interest. Plus penalties for the inconvenience Veronica's caused. I felt like the ground was falling away beneath me. We don't have $2.4 million. Marcus said Veronica took everything. Then you'll need to be creative. I understand you're quite good with insurance claims, surely you can figure something out. There was a pause, filled with the sound of papers rustling. I have a complete file on you, Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. Your real work history, your actual expertise in identifying fraudulent claims. It's quite impressive. Agent Torres's voice crackled urgently in my ear. He's not just threatening you, he's recruiting you. The realization hit me like ice water. You want me to help you steal more money. I want you to help yourself stay alive, David said pleasantly. See, here's the situation, my associates have already written off the $2.4 million as a business loss. But they're very interested in the potential for future earnings. A legitimate insurance claims adjuster who understands the system from both sides. That's valuable. Marcus grabbed the phone from my hand. Listen, whoever you are, Sarah's not involved in this. She didn't know anything about the fake deaths until today. Let her go and You'll what, Marcus? Work double shifts at the county clerk's office to pay back millions of dollars. David laughed. I don't think so. Besides, Sarah's involvement went much deeper than she's told you. That's not true, I said, taking the phone back. Really? Then explain why you never questioned Marcus's sudden financial improvements over the past 8 months. The new car, the expensive clothes, the weekend trips he claimed were work conferences. A trained insurance investigator didn't notice her husband was living beyond his means. My stomach dropped. He was right, I had noticed. I'd even joked with Marcus about his mysterious raise when he bought the new Honda Accord in cash. But I'd been so focused on our deteriorating marriage that I hadn't looked deeper. You see, Sarah, willful blindness is still a form of participation. And participation makes you complicit. Which makes you useful. Agent Torres's voice in my ear was getting more urgent. Teams are in position. We can move in 30 seconds. But David wasn't finished. I'm going to give you 48 hours to think about my offer. You can spend that time trying to convince the FBI that you're an innocent victim, or you can spend it figuring out how to make this situation profitable for everyone involved. And if I refuse? Then the Sarah Mitchell who died on March 15th will stay dead. But the Sarah Mitchell who's been helping her ex-husband commit insurance fraud for the past year? She's going to have a very public trial. I have security footage from 6 different locations showing you and Marcus together discussing claim procedures, reviewing paperwork, planning timelines. Marcus was shaking his head violently, but I knew David was probably telling the truth. Veronica had been documenting everything, which meant someone had been watching us for months, building a case that painted me as a willing conspirator. 48 hours, David repeated. I'll be in touch with details about your first assignment. And Sarah? Don't bother running. Dead people can't get very far without proper identification. The line went dead just as Agent Torres and her team burst into the pavilion, weapons drawn and radios crackling. But I had the sinking feeling they were already too late. The FBI safe house smelled like stale coffee and industrial disinfectant. I'd been staring at the same 4 beige walls for 18 hours, going over every detail of my conversation with David while Agent Torres and her team tried to figure out who the hell he actually was. The phone number traces back to a burner cell that was purchased with cash in Detroit 3 weeks ago, Torres said, setting down a fresh cup of coffee I didn't want. But the call itself was routed through servers in 7 different countries before reaching you. Whoever this David is, he knows how to stay hidden. Marcus sat across from me at the small conference table, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His lawyer, a tired-looking public defender named Roberts, kept shuffling through the same stack of papers and sighing dramatically. What I don't understand, Roberts said for the 5th time, is why your client is being treated as a witness instead of a suspect. He admitted to federal fraud totaling over $2 million. Because right now, he's more useful to us alive and cooperative than locked up, Torres replied bluntly. Someone out there has $2.4 million stolen dollars and enough blackmail material to destroy 12 people across 5 states. Marcus is our best lead to finding them. My phone, which had been mercifully quiet since David's call, suddenly buzzed with a new message. Torres immediately moved to look over my shoulder as I opened it. The text contained a single photo, Veronica Chin sitting at what looked like a beachside cafe, wearing sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat. She was clearly alive, clearly relaxed, and clearly somewhere tropical. But she wasn't alone, there was a man's hand visible in the frame, wearing an expensive-looking watch. The caption read, Veronica sends her regards. She's enjoying her retirement, but she wanted you to know she's not the only one who kept detailed records. Check your email. D. Torres was already on her radio, coordinating with the cybercrime unit as I opened my email on my phone. What I found there made my blood run cold. The message contained a dozen attachments, video files with timestamps going back 8 months. The first one showed Marcus and me having dinner at Romano's Italian restaurant on July 15th. The video had been taken from across the restaurant, probably with a telephoto lens, but the audio was crystal clear. I'm telling you, Sarah, Marcus's voice said on the recording, some of these claims we process are so obviously fake it's ridiculous. Like this widow who filed for benefits on her husband who supposedly died in a car accident, but the death certificate has the wrong coroner's signature. In the video, I leaned forward with interest. How can you tell? Dr. Pemberton signs his name with a very specific flourish. Been doing it the same way for 15 years. But this certificate was signed H. Pemberton, in block letters. Dead giveaway. I watched myself nod thoughtfully. That's the kind of detail that would get flagged in an insurance investigation too. We look for inconsistencies in documentation all the time. Torres paused the video and looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Sarah, this conversation never happened the way I remember it. What do you mean? I mean, we did have dinner at Romano's that night, and Marcus did mention some case he was working on. But we were talking about his day at work, not about fraud patterns or how to spot fake documents. I felt sick as the implications hit me. This audio has been edited. Marcus leaned over to look at my phone screen. Jesus Christ. They've been watching us since July, recording everything, and then, what? Cutting and pasting conversations to make it sound like we were planning fraud. Roberts, the public defender, suddenly looked much more interested. If this audio has been digitally manipulated, it could be grounds for dismissing any charges based on these recordings. But Torres was already shaking her head. The problem is proving the manipulation. This is sophisticated work, the kind that requires expert analysis to detect. And that takes time we don't have. Another email notification popped up on my phone. This one contained a single video file labeled Sarah_Marcus_planning_September_12.mp4. I didn't want to watch it, but I had to know what David thought he had on us. The video showed Marcus and me in our living room, sitting on the couch with papers spread across the coffee table. According to the timestamp, this was from 2 weeks before Marcus moved out. The key is timing everything around holidays when verification offices are closed, my voice said clearly on the recording. If you submit the paperwork on a Friday before a 3-day weekend, you've got 4 days before anyone can double-check with the coroner's office. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. And the insurance companies are more likely to fast-track claims if they think they're dealing with grieving family members who need the money quickly. I stared at the screen in horror. That conversation had never happened. We'd been fighting about Marcus forgetting to pay the electric bill and him accusing me of being controlling about finances. But somehow, someone had turned our marital argument into detailed planning for insurance fraud. This is impossible, I whispered. They've created an entire fake relationship history where Marcus and I were criminal partners instead of a couple falling apart. Torres studied the video carefully. The technology exists to do this kind of audio manipulation in real time now. If someone had been recording all your conversations for months, they could have built a library of your speech patterns and vocabulary. Then it's just a matter of editing together sentences to create whatever narrative they want. But why go to all this trouble? Marcus asked. If they already had the money, why not just disappear? Because, Torres said grimly, this was never about stealing $2.4 million. This was about building a network of compromised assets, people with specialized skills who could be forced to commit larger crimes because they were already implicated in smaller ones. My phone buzzed with a final message from David, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. First National Bank downtown. You're going to help me withdraw $500,000 from the business accounts of 3 companies that don't properly verify their insurance coverage. Consider it a job interview. Bring your expertise, you'll need it. The surveillance footage from First National Bank played on Agent Torres' laptop for the 3rd time, and I still couldn't believe what I was seeing. At 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes before I was supposed to meet David, a woman who looked exactly like me had walked into the bank and successfully withdrawn $500,000 from 3 different business accounts. The facial recognition software confirms it's a 94% match, Torres said, pausing the video on a clear shot of the woman's face. Same height, same build, same hair color. Even the same nervous habit of tucking hair behind your left ear. I stared at my doppelganger on the screen. She was wearing clothes I'd never owned, a navy business suit and expensive-looking heels, but her mannerisms were eerily familiar. This is insane. I was here the entire time, in protective custody with your agents. Which is exactly what David was counting on, Torres replied. While you were safely locked away, unable to commit any crimes, someone who looks identical to you was systematically robbing 3 legitimate businesses. The bank's security system recorded every second of it. Marcus, who had been uncharacteristically quiet all morning, suddenly sat up straighter. Wait a minute. Sarah, do you remember when Veronica came to our Christmas party last year? She spent a lot of time taking photos, said she was working on some kind of digital art project. The memory hit me like a physical blow. Veronica had indeed taken dozens of photos that night, claiming she was experimenting with different lighting techniques. She'd been particularly interested in getting shots from multiple angles, asking me to turn my head this way and that. She was building a reference library, I realized. For creating a digital double. Torres nodded grimly. Deepfake technology has gotten sophisticated enough that with enough source material, you can create video that's virtually indistinguishable from reality. Add in some basic plastic surgery for a live actor, and you have the perfect patsy. Roberts, the public defender, was frantically taking notes. This is good for Marcus, it proves there's a larger conspiracy at work. But it's terrible for your client, he said, looking at me. Every crime this fake Sarah commits gets added to your tab. My phone, which had been silent since yesterday's threats, suddenly rang. The caller ID showed First National Bank. Ms. Mitchell, this is Jennifer from the bank. I need to speak with you immediately about some very serious discrepancies in. Jennifer, this is FBI Agent Torres. Ms. Mitchell is in federal protective custody. What discrepancies are you referring to? There was a long pause. Agent Torres, according to our security footage, Ms. Mitchell was in our bank this morning at 8:47 a.m. conducting authorized withdrawals from 3 business accounts. But I also have a report that she's been in FBI custody since yesterday evening. That's impossible. Unfortunately, it's not, Torres said. Jennifer, we need you to preserve all security footage from this morning and refuse any further transactions from anyone claiming to be Sarah Mitchell, regardless of identification provided. After Torres hung up, my phone immediately buzzed with a text from David, impressive work this morning, Sarah. Your banking expertise made the withdrawals seamless. The account holders won't notice the missing funds for at least a week, giving us plenty of time for phase 2. He's talking like I actually did it, I said, showing the message to Torres. Because as far as he's concerned, you did. Every witness, every camera, every piece of evidence shows Sarah Mitchell committing these crimes. Torres closed her laptop with a snap. David's not just stealing money anymore, he's manufacturing evidence of your guilt in real time. Marcus suddenly went pale. Sarah, if they can make it look like you robbed a bank this morning, what's stopping them from making it look like you've been planning this for months? They could create fake evidence of you scouting locations, researching security protocols, meeting with accomplices. The full scope of what we were dealing with finally hit me. David didn't just want me to commit crimes, he wanted to destroy any possibility that I could claim innocence about the crime someone else was committing in my name. Agent Torres, I said quietly, I think we need to discuss witness protection. Because at this rate, I'm going to be the most wanted woman in America by the end of the week. 3 days later, I was staring at a wall of monitors in the FBI's field office, watching myself commit crimes I'd never heard of in cities I'd never visited. The fake Sarah had been busy, bank fraud in Cleveland, identity theft in Indianapolis, insurance scams in Detroit. Each crime was perfectly documented, time-stamped, and attributed to my social security number. The pattern is escalating, Agent Torres said, pointing to a timeline on the whiteboard. Monday was $500,000 in business account withdrawals. Tuesday was $800,000 in fraudulent insurance claims filed across 3 states. Yesterday, she hit a credit union in Toledo for $1.2 million using fake corporate accounts. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You mean me, right? According to every piece of evidence you have. According to every piece of evidence anyone has, Torres corrected. Sarah, there are now 11 different law enforcement agencies looking for you. The woman committing these crimes isn't just using your identity, she's improving on it. Better clothes, more confidence, cleaner execution than most seasoned criminals. Marcus had been released on bail that morning, but he'd insisted on staying to help with the investigation. Now he was studying surveillance photos with the intensity of someone trying to solve a puzzle. Look at this, he said suddenly, pointing to a still frame from the Toledo credit union robbery. She's wearing a wedding ring. I looked at my bare left hand, then back at the photo. The fake Sarah was indeed wearing a ring, a simple gold band that looked exactly like the one I'd thrown at Marcus in the courthouse. The same ring you used as a prop when you were stealing my money, I realized. But I gave that ring to Veronica months ago, Marcus said, his face going white. She said she needed it for documentation, to make the fake death look more authentic. Agent Torres was already on her phone, calling the cybercrime unit. While she coordinated with her team, my phone buzzed with another message from David. Impressive week, Sarah. $2.5 million in 4 days puts you ahead of schedule. Your final exam is tomorrow, Century National Bank downtown, 2 p.m. The target is their commercial lending vault, $8.7 million in bearer bonds that mature next week. Failure is not an option. My hands started shaking as I read the message aloud. $8.7 million. He's completely lost his mind. No, Torres said grimly, ending her call. He's perfectly sane. And we just figured out why. She turned her laptop toward us, showing a news article dated that morning. Century National Bank announced this morning that they're upgrading their entire security system next weekend. After tomorrow, those bearer bonds will be in an impenetrable digital vault. So this is his last chance to steal them using analog methods, Marcus said. More than that, Torres continued. I just spoke with the bank president. Those bonds belong to a pension fund for retired teachers. If they're stolen, 1,200 elderly people lose their life savings. The weight of what David was planning hit me like a truck. He's not just framing me for theft anymore, he's framing me for destroying innocent people's lives. And here's the worst part, Torres said, pulling up another screen. We intercepted communications this morning suggesting the fake Sarah isn't planning to just walk into Century National tomorrow. She's planning to take hostages. Marcus grabbed my arm. Sarah, if someone gets hurt during a robbery committed by your double, then I become wanted for felony murder, not just theft. I felt like I was drowning. Agent Torres, please tell me you have a plan to stop this. Torres looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, part determination, part desperation. Actually, I do. But you're not going to like it. She paused, studying my face carefully. Sarah, how do you feel about robbing a bank? The plan Agent Torres outlined made my stomach turn inside out. At 1:45 p.m. tomorrow, I would walk into Century National Bank, not as a criminal, but as bait. While my doppelganger was presumably preparing for the heist of her career, I'd be sitting in the bank's lobby with enough surveillance equipment to film a documentary. The theory is sound, Torres explained, spreading blueprints across the conference table. If there really are two Sarah Mitchells planning to be in the same bank at the same time, we'll finally have proof that you're being impersonated. And if the theory is wrong? I asked. If David somehow found a way around this too. Torres didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. Marcus had been quiet during the entire briefing, but now he cleared his throat nervously. There's something else we need to consider. What if the fake Sarah knows about this plan? Veronica had access to law enforcement databases through her job, what if David does too? That's why we're not using standard FBI communications for this operation, Torres replied. Everything's being coordinated through encrypted channels with the Treasury Department. Only 6 people know the full scope of what we're doing tomorrow. My phone buzzed with another message, and everyone in the room tensed. But this time, it wasn't from David, it was from a number I recognized as belonging to Dr. Patricia Wells, my physician for the past 8 years. Sarah, I need to see you immediately. Something very strange happened at my office today regarding your medical records. Please call me as soon as you get this. Agent Torres frowned as she read the message over my shoulder. When was the last time you saw Dr. Wells? 3 weeks ago for my annual physical. Right before. I stopped, remembering the timeline. Right before Marcus filed the fake death certificate. Torres was already dialing Dr. Wells' office. After a brief conversation, she hung up with a grim expression. Dr. Wells says someone called this morning claiming to be you, asking for copies of all your medical records to be sent to a new physician in Florida. When her office asked for verification, the caller provided your social security number, birth date, and detailed information about your recent physical exam. Information that would only be in my medical files, I realized. Which means David's people have been accessing your records for weeks, maybe months, Marcus said. They know everything about you, not just your appearance and mannerisms, but your medical history, your prescriptions, probably even your allergies. The implications hit me like ice water. Agent Torres, if they know I take Lipitor for high cholesterol, they know I have a heart condition. What if they're not just planning to frame me for bank robbery? What if they're planning to make sure I don't survive to defend myself? Before Torres could respond, her radio crackled with an urgent message. Agent Torres, this is Surveillance Unit 7. We have a problem at Century National Bank. Torres grabbed the radio. What kind of problem? Ma'am, there's been a break-in at the bank. Happened sometime between midnight and 6 a.m. Security system was disabled, but nothing appears to have been stolen. My blood ran cold. They weren't stealing anything, I whispered. They were planting something. Torres was already coordinating with her team, but I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. David hadn't been planning to rob Century National Bank tomorrow, he'd been planning to make it look like I had robbed it tonight. Agent Torres, I said quietly, I think we need to check what the security cameras recorded during that break-in. She was already pulling up her laptop, but we all knew what we'd find. Somewhere in Century National Bank, there would be perfect video evidence of Sarah Mitchell, me, stealing $8.7 million in bearer bonds. The only question was whether anyone would believe I'd been in FBI custody when it happened. The Century National Bank security footage was crystal clear. At 3:47 a.m., Sarah Mitchell, wearing my face, my mannerisms, even my nervous habit of checking her phone twice before putting it away, had systematically cleaned out the commercial lending vault. The timestamp showed her working alone, methodically photographing each bearer bond before placing it in a leather briefcase. 12 minutes and 37 seconds, Agent Torres said, replaying the footage for the 4th time. She knew exactly where everything was located, had all the access codes, even knew which cameras had blind spots. But I was staring at something else entirely. Agent Torres, look at her left hand when she's opening the 3rd safety deposit box. Torres zoomed in on the image. The fake Sarah was wearing gloves, but there was something wrong with the way her left hand moved, a slight tremor that became more pronounced as she worked. She's nervous, Marcus observed. For someone who's been pulling off perfect crimes all week, she suddenly looks amateur. That's not nerves, I said, my heart starting to race. I know that tremor. Dar. Wells prescribed Lipitor for my cholesterol, but the real reason I need it is because I have a rare genetic condition called familial hypercholesterolemia. Without medication, I get muscle tremors in my left hand. Torres sat up straighter. You're saying your medical double is experiencing withdrawal symptoms? I'm saying whoever's been impersonating me has been taking my medication to avoid the tremors. But look at the timestamp, this robbery happened at 3:47 a.m. If she took her last dose yesterday morning, she'd be experiencing withdrawal by now. Torres grabbed her radio. I need a pharmaceutical trace on all Lipitor prescriptions filled in the past 48 hours by anyone matching Sarah Mitchell's description. While Torres coordinated with her team, Marcus was studying the security footage with new intensity. Sarah, there's something else. Look at how she enters the vault access code. He paused the video at the moment the fake Sarah's fingers hit the keypad. She's not just typing random numbers, she's typing with the confidence of someone who's used this code before. The realization hit me like lightning. She's not just impersonating me for the crimes. She's been impersonating me for weeks, learning my routines, my passwords, my entire life. I grabbed Torres's laptop and started scrolling through my recent account activity. Look at this, my Netflix password was changed 3 weeks ago. My Amazon account shows orders I never placed. Someone's been living parallel to my life, studying everything I do. Torres's radio crackled with an update. Agent Torres, we've got a match on the pharmaceutical trace. Lipitor prescription filled yesterday at 4:15 p.m. by a Veronica Chin using Sarah Mitchell's insurance information. Pharmacy cameras show a woman matching the suspect's description. Veronica's still in town, Marcus breathed. She never fled to the Cayman Islands. She's been here the entire time, I realized, directing someone else to commit crimes in my name while she stayed close enough to monitor the investigation. I looked at Torres with growing excitement. Agent Torres, if Veronica's been filling prescriptions using my insurance, and if she's experiencing withdrawal symptoms, then she'll need another dose within the next 6 hours, Torres finished. And there are only 4 pharmacies in the county that carry the specific generic brand your insurance covers. 20 minutes later, Torres had surveillance teams positioned at all 4 locations. But my phone buzzed with a message that changed everything. Sarah, this ends tonight. Riverside Park, 9 p.m. Come alone, bring the FBI recordings of Marcus's confession, and maybe we can work out a deal. Refuse, and tomorrow morning every news station in America will have video of you robbing Century National Bank. Veronica. I showed the message to Torres and Marcus. For the first time in days, Torres was smiling. She just made her first real mistake, Torres said. She's admitting the bank robbery was a setup, and she's doing it over a traceable phone line. She looked at me seriously. Sarah, are you ready to meet your doppelganger? At 8:55 p.m., I walked into Riverside Park wearing enough surveillance equipment to outfit a small army. Agent Torres and her team were positioned throughout the area, but I still felt completely alone as I approached the same pavilion where this nightmare had started. Veronica Chen was already waiting, and seeing her in person was like looking into a funhouse mirror. She'd had extensive plastic surgery to match my features, but the resemblance was imperfect, close enough to fool security cameras, but disturbing enough to make my skin crawl. Hello, Sarah, she said, her voice a practiced imitation of mine. You look tired. You look like me, I replied, which is deeply disturbing. Veronica laughed, my laugh, stolen and reproduced. Do you know how much money I've made using your face? Your mannerisms. Your precious expertise in insurance fraud. I know how much you stole. The question is why you're still here instead of enjoying your retirement in the Caribbean. Because the real money isn't in theft, Sarah. It's in transformation. She gestured to her surgically altered face. I become you so completely that I could live your entire life better than you ever did. Better job, better relationships, better financial decisions. Through my earpiece, I heard Agent Torres whisper, keep her talking. We need a full confession. So what's the deal you mentioned? I asked. Veronica smiled with my stolen face. You disappear permanently, real disappearance, not fake death. I keep your identity, your social security number, your entire existence. In exchange, I make sure the bank robbery footage never surfaces. And Marcus? Marcus was always disposable. But you, Sarah, you're special. You understand systems, procedures, weaknesses. Together, we could build an empire. I stared at this woman who'd stolen my face, my life, my very identity, and felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks, absolute clarity. Veronica, I said clearly, go to hell. The FBI moved in from 6 different directions as Veronica reached for something in her purse. But she never got the chance to use whatever weapon she'd brought, because Agent Torres was already behind her with handcuffs. Veronica Chen, Torres announced, you're under arrest for identity theft, bank fraud, conspiracy to commit federal crimes, and approximately 37 other charges we're still calculating. As they led Veronica away, she turned back to me one last time. This isn't over, Sarah. There are others. David wasn't working alone, and neither was I. Maybe not, I called after her. But Sarah Mitchell is officially back from the dead. And she's pissed. 6 months later, I was sitting in the same Walgreens where this whole nightmare had started, waiting for Rebecca to count out my Lipitor refill. But this time, when she ran my insurance card, the system worked perfectly. Here you go, Ms. Mitchell, Rebecca said with a smile. 90-day supply, $15 copay. Same time next month. Same time next month, I confirmed, signing the electronic pad with hands that no longer shook. Marcus had pleaded guilty to fraud conspiracy and received 3 years probation plus community service. Veronica was serving 15 years in federal prison, and the investigation into David's network had uncovered similar identity theft operations in 12 states. The fake bearer bonds robbery at Century National had been overturned when forensic analysis proved the security footage had been digitally manipulated. My bank accounts were restored, my credit cleared, and my legal existence firmly re-established. But the best part was the letter I'd received that morning from the Treasury Department, a job offer to join their financial crimes task force, investigating the exact kind of fraud I'd been victimized by. As I walked out of Walgreens, prescription bag in hand, my phone buzzed with a text from Agent Torres. Sarah, we found 3 more Veronica Chens using other people's identities. Interested in some consulting work? I looked up at the afternoon sun, the same sun that had seemed too bright and cheerful on the day I discovered I was legally dead. Now it just felt warm. I texted back, let's go catch some identity thieves. After all, I was Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, very much alive, and I had some experience with resurrection.